I'm happy to dive a little bit deeper in some aspects that Rainer already mentioned in his presentation regarding process mining. So we will have a closer look at how we work with as-is processes rather than with the to-be processes. We will have a closer look at what process mining means and how we integrate process mining capabilities in Symbio. So my name is Boris. I am responsible for business development and partner management at the Process Analytics Factory, a partner of Pletz & Zeller. We work closely together in the areas of process mining and BI. And so I will talk at the beginning a little bit about process mining and give you a little bit of context why we think we do this and we enable better processes n times better. Then I will show you some insights of the solution based on the integrated application in Symbio. Because it is an innovation day, I will also highlight some aspects, some capabilities that will come with our new version. We will also ship a new version beginning of June. And I will give you at the end some ideas and impulses how next steps could be. We heard already of a raffle that we have at the end, so let's see what we can offer for you. So let's dive into the topic itself. And I think when we look at customers and customers who talk about digital transformation in different kind of areas, I think in the meanwhile they have a pretty good view on how to invest, and these are primarily three areas. The first one is everything around transparency. So to have a higher transparency in controlling controlling systems in internal processes. So that is one key aspect. The second aspect is around integration and automation. So how do I automate my business processes or parts of my business processes better than today, avoid manual work, etc. Have a better integration of my applications. And the third aspect is around building up analytics competencies, so to better understand the data, to work efficiently with the tools and applications that already exist. So these are three areas, and I think more or less every company is currently investing somehow in these areas. But one key question, one additional key question always comes up, and then it is where do I start ideally? So everybody's talking about digitalization, digital transformation, but let's make it concrete. Where can I start? Where should I put my money first to optimize my processes, to have a better transparency, etc. And I would say the classical way would be to do some kind of workshops, to do some kind of interviews, to set up a consulting project, for example, to identify how the company, how the departments work today, and how the processes look like, what kind of variants exist, what kind of process steps exist, where the employees do manual work, where process steps are already automated, etc., etc., etc. But as you can imagine, this is a time-consuming and often also expensive approach. And we think that this, let's say, analog approach isn't really suitable for our digitalization initiatives anymore. So we think that we should do this differently. And that's the way how we do exactly this. and how we leverage process mining capabilities and the data that the customers have in their operational applications. So the idea is we like to use this kind of data to come up with let's say an imaging method that would allow the customers to make a process diagnosis for their digital initiatives very precise, immediately, and especially continuously. Because when you do a consulting project and you do these kind of interviews and workshops, this is I would say a one-time approach, and then you come up with some results, and based on these results you start some optimization projects or initiatives. But this is a one-time approach, and you do not have an approach that do this continuously to really monitor your trends and if you're getting better and better or not. So our idea is really to do this immediate and to do this continuously based on the data that you have in your company. And that this idea is a pretty smart idea that has already recognized by, for example, BARC, an analyst company, especially in the BI and analytics space, with the startup award that we received last year. Gartner just mentioned us in the new Gartner's market guide for process mining. And we also received significant federal funding on innovation and research for specific areas where we do research projects. Just two examples. One example is that we just started a project where we combine process mining and blockchain technologies to find out if blockchain technologies and smart contracts could help us building cross-company business process monitoring and process mining using the benefits of a blockchain. Another example is that we will start a project in September where we combine process mining, artificial intelligence, and robotic process automation to make the robots even smarter based on the data that we already have and make them learn how the processes could be optimized. Okay, so let's start and have a look what this solution is and how it looks like when we integrate these kind of capabilities into Symbio. One last slide. I promise just one slide, but I want to give a little bit context of what we will see in a second. Because what we will see contains of three main areas, and that's more or less the scope that defines our approach of artificial process intelligence. So the first one is around analysis. It's giving you the transparency of how the current processes run at the moment in your company, and that's I would say the traditional core process mining approach to give you these kinds of insights, give you these kinds of visualizations, and then based on this data, start optimization initiatives, for example. But a very important second aspect is that we don't want you to be just smarter. We want you to have also, and that's, I think, the key aspect, have really better processes. So just having the insights and the transparency is nice, but it's not sufficient. So what we do and what we want to achieve is that we take insights out of our application and be able to trigger other activities, workflows in other applications to really start activities, to do something, to come from insights to action. And the technology that we use and leverage will give us the opportunity to do so. So for example, if we look at a purchase to pay process and we look at some invoices and we recognize that we have a significant amount of discount losses, we would be able to directly start a workflow in SAP, for example, or hand over specific specific business cases to a robotic process automation application. So really makes this operational. And the third aspect is we use and leverage BI technology. We leverage the Microsoft Power BI technology, and this environment automatically gives us all the capabilities that you would normally use when doing some kind of reporting, dashboarding, etc. And based on these capabilities, we can do a continuous monitoring of our process performance, and we can provide these kind of insights on any device, even a mobile device. So what we need to do all this is, of course, we need data. Additionally, we need a process mining intelligence to transform the data that we have in the operational systems and to come up with a specific data model that we need to visualize the data in the way that you will see in a couple of minutes. And then we will leverage the Microsoft Power BI technology to, at the end, build these kind of reports and dashboards that a user would consume or work with. And because we don't do only analysis, we do also automation and the monitoring aspect, and that's why we not only talk about process mining in its core, we also we enrich this process mining capabilities with the other focus areas, and that's why we talk about artificial process intelligence, and we leverage the entire cycle within the Symbio application. So let's have a look how it how we do this, and I will change to my browser. I hope you see my browser right now. I'm using a standard web browser to connect to the Symbio application. So there are different ways of navigating to these kind of reports. You already see here in the menu a process mining menu, but we can also navigate via processes, and then we have the financial planning and controlling part, and in the report section we have the process mining capabilities. And now what we see right now is our core technology is the product PAFnow. It's integrated into Symbio. So you work directly in the Symbio application. And what I do right now is I do a full screen view. So I change the tab, but it's just for you to have a better view on the reports. So what I will do right now is I will walk you through a set of predefined reports just to highlight some aspects around process mining and what we do in this area. That's not the full functionality that you could use and you can work with. It's just an example. And I hope it gives you already some ideas and impulses what benefits what benefits this kind of solution could provide to you. So that is the first, I would say, the first classical view. And what you see here is the so-called Process Explorer, and it gives you the current view on the process. In this case, this example is a purchase to pay process with data coming from, for example, from from SAP. So I see here the process. I see, I can zoom a little bit. I see I have 564 cases that go through this process. And on the right side, I do have different kind of attributes that I can use to filter and sort. So especially here on the right side, the variance. Variance means, you see here, I have the first variant. I can click on that one, and you see this is one variant of the process, and it's the variant with the most cases, 425 cases, and you see exactly how these cases go through the entire process. So you can select multiple variants to have a first insight of how your process looks like. You can, of course, in this case, we also have vendor data, so we can select a specific vendor to have a look at the current process by vendor, or what we can do, we can also choose the most the material class with the most cases, and that's a specific view on the process right now. If I would have a look at all variants and all material classes, then you would have typically this, let's call it a spaghetti picture. You won't really identify anything specific, but just to give you the idea that this is, in this example, the current process, the purchase to pay process, how it looks like in this specific application at a demo customer, for example, but the complexity you will find anywhere. And on the right hand side, for example, you have some further attributes that you could also use. And for example, you could choose a specific material class to do some kind of further sorting and selecting. So process discovery, as the name says, it's discovering the current situation, how the process looks like today, how your employees work in the process, and it gives you already first insights and ideas where areas of optimization could be. So that was the first one. A second one, or a second view on the data could be that you do some kind of benchmarking. That's a typical way of comparing, for example, different attributes. In this case, you see the same process, but for two different vendors. So you see with just one view, you see that the exact same process is much more complex with the vendor FinHigh than on the right side with the vendor Zoomit, and you have some key KPIs on the bottom. You see the number of variants is with 13 different variants is much more complex than with two variants. And so you can compare vendors. We have one customer currently where we do a comparison of subsidiaries. So they recognize that same company, the same product, they have completely different processes per subsidiary, and they dive a little bit deeper into this one. And then there might be this just some examples. There might be some further reports that give you some more insights around, I would say, classical process performance indicators. You could look at the number of loops, for example. So if you have a loop somewhere in the process, or so-called self loops, so here you have an activity and you have loops in this activity. For example, there is an employee that changes some some master data for a customer or a vendor a lot of times. So this would be so-called self loops. For example, you have a trend here, so you see not just for one time. That's what I said at the beginning. It's not a one-time shot. You really see trends, and you see if you're getting better in the processes, having less loops, having less variance, have a more higher degree of automation, etc. That's what you would see in these kind of reports. I can also, just to give you some ideas, also click and sort and analyze some aspects within these kind of charts. On the bottom right side, you see the so-called root cause analyzer. So this specific view with a specific intelligence in the background gives you some ideas of why, in this case, the purchase, the process step purchase order item change, why this process step has so much more self loops than other process steps. So in the background, the system combines and compares these data of this process steps with data and attributes of other process steps, and gives you some ideas, some root cause that you can use to then dive a little bit deeper into the data and really find out where to look at. So it gives you some recommendations where you should look at your data. Then I also talked about automation, and obviously the automation rate is pretty interesting, because especially the automation rate could give you some ideas, some very concrete options where to start optimization projects, or even where to implement applications like RPA applications, robotic process automation. So you would see a degree of automation of your process, because we know the system knows if a certain activity has been completed by an employee or by the system, and because we have this data, we can then come up with insights around this automation rate. So especially when we talk about scenarios of combining process mining with robotic process automation, then this view or a similar view around automation rate is the core. And then I would say then digital transformation projects can become very concrete and very precise. What I've shown you already, these kind of examples, these could work for a purchase to pay process, as well as for a CRM process or for an IT service management process. So they are process agnostic. So you have a view, a visual view on the process that I showed you. You have analysis around loops, around process steps, around variance, around automation rate. It's not really specific to a certain application or a certain process. But obviously what you can also do, and what we do in our product and with our partners, that we enrich these generic, I would say generic reports. We enrich these reports, and we add specific reports, for example, for specific questions or specific aspects of a specific process. For example, in a purchase to pay process, we would definitely have a look at discounts. So this would be a report. It could look like this one. It could include this root cause analyzer that I showed you. And this would be a report that is really specific to this process. It would make no sense for an IT service management process, for example, or a CRM process where you look at leads and opportunities and wins, for example. The next example, I think it is becomes very clear that we use Microsoft Power BI in this case to integrate these capabilities in Symbio, and Power BI is a analytics and reporting platform, and therefore all the capabilities that you could imagine around BI and dashboarding, we can use also in this application. So if you build a dashboard based on certain KPIs, or if you do some kind of monitoring, if you would like to do some kind of alerting, so you define certain thresholds for your KPIs, and then you get an automated alert per email or on your mobile device, whatever. These are all things that we can do that are more or less built in, and that you can leverage in this application. And this is a little bit beyond the classical process mining. Because it's an innovation day, with the last two examples, I will show what will come next with PAFnow and with a technology that we provide for Symbio process mining. One aspect is the so-called document flow. You have already seen the process flow, so how the entire process looks like with individual process tabs. When you talk with people and employees who work with SAP a lot, they are not that, I would say, process step driven, they're more document driven. So they talk about purchase orders, they talk about invoices, they talk about purchase requests, shopping carts, etc. So that's more the view that they have, and therefore we thought about how we can visualize how these documents how they flow through the system. And that's why we come up with the so-called document flow. And it's a little bit different, the view, than what we have seen so far. But in this example, you could look at specific documents, for example, specific purchase requests, and then you will see automatically, you will see, okay, I have a purchase request, I have the respective PO, and I see that I have different invoices for this one purchase order. So a different view, not really on the process, but on the documents that go through the process. And we are able to visualize this in this way. Obviously, if this is a system in the background and a process that contains documents and that works with documents in SAP, it's the case. In other applications that would make no sense, because this is primarily very SAP centric. And the last idea and impulse is around anomaly detection. So this is not yet part of the product. I said we are currently doing a lot of research projects. One is also around anomaly detection, and we have a first solution. It's not part of the standard product, but we already do certain projects around anomaly detection. So the idea is that we find anomalies in processes, but especially, and that's the core intelligence, the core idea, in unknown processes. So we don't know how the process really looks like, how it is defined, we don't know, but we have a system, and it uses and leverages machine learning algorithms to learn how the process has to look like, and how people in the process have to work, what process steps exist, what's the right order of these process steps, etc., etc. So the system learns, and we are able to identify anomalies. This hasn't to be something that it's wrong. It might be wrong, it might be correct, but first it's an anomaly that we define. And what you see here in the rows is that we have all the different business, all the different cases, and I can select on the right side, for example, I can select the anomaly wrong execution order, and then you see, okay, it's test data, but you see, okay. I have a PR released and then I have a PR created. This must be wrong, obviously. So this is something where the system helps me to identify process wrong execution in the process. Another option could be to look at certain attributes. So we could even recognize if there might be a user, in this case Marilyn, that is not the user that normally approves shopping carts. It could be correct because perhaps it is a new employee and Marilyn does have the rights to do so, but the system learns and identifies if there might be something wrong. So I think especially in the areas of compliance, SOD violation scenarios, risk management, this is a capability that we provide and that we will build into the software that could be very, very interesting. Having said this, I will return back to my presentation. So that was a first insight into Symbio process mining, what we will be able to provide within Symbio. Just to wrap this up, why could it be interesting to leverage it, and why could it be interesting to decide for this solution rather than other solutions that exist in the market? So especially what you have seen at the end, these kind of artificial intelligence that we built in is really very, very exciting, and you really can make your processes really, really better. It's seamlessly integrated in Symbio as well as in your digital workplace. So obviously you can use this, what you have seen, you can use this within Symbio. You could also connect to via the Power BI service to the same data, the same reports. So it is integrated in your familiar workplace. As said, we have different partners. We also, as PAF, we provide so-called content packs for specific processes like purchase to pay or order to cash. We have partners that have predefined data models and reports and dashboards for example, SAP CRM or for ServiceNow IT service management scenarios. The deployment is pretty easy. You have seen the cloud version, and due to the cloud version, it's pretty, at the end, pretty relatively easy to integrate this kind of solution in a cloud solution like Symbio. But if this would be necessary, we would also be able to set up on-premise deployments. And last but not least, we want to make process mining and artificial process intelligence really something capabilities for everyone, not for very, very few, very specific users. So especially when we combine process mining with the BI capabilities, with alerting, with monitoring, it merges with the classical and existing BI and analytics applications, and therefore we have to make this available to the normal, I would say, the normal user in a department, the normal decision maker, and therefore this kind of solution needs a licensing and also a pricing model that allow also a broader usage of these kind of solutions. So next steps, and I will close with this. So if this seems to be interesting for you, if you want to learn more about it, or if you want to start a dialogue with Plötz and Seller or with PAF, we are happy to do so. Next step, we will have a raffle, I think, in a couple of minutes. You can win a 1-year subscription for this solution. I want to highlight a webinar that we will, the Process Analytics Factory, that we will host on May 24th at 10 a.m. We will launch a new version. 2018, the new version will be available 1st of June. You can register for this webinar, and it will go a little bit deeper into some examples, a little bit deeper than I've done today. So if you're interested, please register. There's also a free a trial, at least a free demo application with similar reports that you have just seen. So if you want to also filter and navigate within these kind of reports to get a feeling of what process mining could look like, feel free to register for the demo application. And of course, this has been a very short session with just a few highlights. We are happy to do a further session if you're interested in, if you have specific questions, if you have perhaps a specific process, specific data that we should discuss, then I'm happy to set up a web session with you, with your colleagues, whoever, to dive a little bit deeper and to find out if this could be interesting for you. And having said this, I say thank you for attention.